Hello, third grade friends. Today we are going to do two things, review a few basic skills about fractions and apply these fraction skills to some real world situations. So the first question I have that we are going to answer together is, what does a fraction tell you? So there are a few main parts of a fraction that we need to remember. What does a fraction tell you? A fraction has two parts. It has the numerator at the top, which tells how many parts are in the fraction, and it has a denominator at the bottom. That's how many equal parts in the whole. So this fraction in particular, we're talking about 3/4. So we're going to have 4 equal parts in the whole, but we're only going to use 3 of those parts. So down at the bottom here, I'm going to color in my different fractions. Each of these pieces is going to be 1/4. That's how many parts are in the whole. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's our denominator. Our numerator is how many parts are in the fraction. So we're talking about 3 of those fourths. So I'm going to color in 3 of those fourths. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so to review, what does a fraction tell us? It tells us how many equal parts are in the whole, that's the denominator, and it tells us how many parts are in the fraction, that's the numerator. My next question we're going to review is, what are the equal parts of a fraction called? So if you look at our equal parts, we're going to work with thirds first. Here is 1 whole. Each part is 1/3. What are each of these parts called? Each of these parts are called a unit fraction. Okay, so 1/3 is a unit fraction, 1/3 is a unit fraction, 1/3 is a unit fraction. If we put some of these thirds together, we'll create a fraction. So if I were just to use 2 of these thirds, then I would just be working with 2/3 of the whole. But each of these pieces is 1/3, and it's called a unit fraction. Now let's think about fractions in the real world. Okay? The first thing I'm going to use is glasses of water. Okay? So my first glass of water is about 1/4 full. 1/4 full. Okay. My next glass of water is about half full, right? About 2/4 full. My third glass of water is about 3/4 full. So it's getting more full as we go. As we add those unit fractions together, it's getting more full. My last glass of water is, you guessed it, 4/4 full. So a full glass of water. Okay. I know everybody knows what this fruit is. Here I have an apple. This is a whole apple. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this apple into equal pieces. Okay. So I'm going to use an apple cutter that has equal pieces, and I'm going to cut it for you. We're going to see what types of fractions and unit fractions we have. So now if I look at my apple, it's cut into equal pieces. Let's count how many equal pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 equal pieces. So if we are going to write this as a fraction, we have 8 equal pieces. That's going to be our denominator. 8 equal pieces in the whole. Now, if I look at my apple again, if I were going to eat 2 of these pieces, I would write that number in the top, and I have now eaten 2/8 of the apple, a part of the whole apple. My last example is you might have seen something like this in your kitchen before. So you'll notice on this utensil, okay, this is a measuring utensil that helps us measure when we cook. I'm going to zoom this in. Each of these is 1 tablespoon. Each of these is 1 tablespoon. This is 1 whole tablespoon. But if we don't need a whole tablespoon, we're going to need a fraction of that tablespoon. So maybe I just need 1/2 a tablespoon. Notice that the half is smaller than the whole tablespoon because we only need a part of that tablespoon. Or I might need 1/4 of that tablespoon. Notice the 1/4 is even smaller than the half. Okay? So there are some examples of where you might see fractions in the real world. Where else do you see fractions?